It's said that democracy was invented in ancient Greece by men in togas meeting on a hillside outside of Athens, doing politics face to face. Well, that was a while ago. There are no togas anymore, and it's not just men. And in the United States, the idea of personal face-to-face politics is diminished, if not just utterly obsolete. In the United States, democracy means technology. We use technology to campaign. We use technology to conduct the vote and then count it. We use technology that costs so much money that the campaign becomes an endless search for cash. And we use technology to cheat. David Dulio studies all this at Oakland University, and I wonder if you can walk us through this, because it's a big topic. Just to start with, the whole campaign conversation happens through technology. It happens through the media, but it also happens through the internet, other sources. Walk us through that. I think we also have a slide we can look at while you talk.
Sure. I think, first, thanks for having me, John. It's good to talk to you again. The technological evolution and revolution in the United States really goes back decades, and even maybe you could say a century, right? Because if we go back to the 1920s, we get the advent of radio here in the United States, and that allows candidates and elected officials to go right to the voters rather than having their messages filtered through the media and through reporters, right? Fast forward then to the really big shift that has changed American campaigning. The 1950s, we get television, and we get that coming on the scene, and then it is total dominance through the latter half of the 1900s. And again, it allows candidates for office to make a direct appeal to voters right into their living rooms with not only audio, but video messages, right? And image becomes incredibly important. And we can go back to the 1960 campaign between Richard Nixon and John F. Kennedy to see the impact of image. And then, of course, early in the 2000s, we get to the internet age, and John McCain is somebody who ran for president early in the 2000s and started this really with a digital yard sign, which is how it began on the web. And he leveraged it to raise a bunch more money than anybody ever thought they could. Fast forward again, we get to the Obama era, and he creates. He not only uses social media, but he creates his own platform with My Barack Obama, and it allows candidates to what they used it for really was campaign. Let's call it organizational elements, right? Where they could get volunteers together through meetups, et cetera, et cetera. And then we get into today's world where we're talking about social media platforms that spread information quicker than we could have ever imagined. And some of that information is questionable at best in its nature when we talk about deep fakes and artificial intelligence and those sorts of things.
Tell us more about that, because, okay, a lot of technology for people who are playing according to the rules, and then there's technology for people who are breaking the rules. And some of it is incredibly ingenious, hard to understand, but seems to be having an impact. What are people doing? What are they using?
Well, you used an interesting phrase there, breaking the rules. And I'm not sure what the rules are because in a lot of times in American campaigning, there really are no rules, right? And it's this Wild West because we have this thing called the First Amendment that allows people to speak in whatever way they want and say almost anything they want, free of government interference, right? And that really is, I think, a limiting factor to what maybe the government could do about those things. But deep fakes, which are fake videos, audio that seem to be indicating that somebody said something or was in a particular maybe state or town with particular individuals, when it's all just made up, and that's only going to get worse.
There are bots. Tell us about that. Internet messages,
yeah, sure.
Social network messages.
On what used to be Twitter or other platforms, you can get these bot farms, which are just big warehouses full of servers and some people that that are pushing out what appear to be genuine messages from real people. But again, it's all fake. It's all generated. It's all contrived. It's all engineered speech.
So that's the campaign. Let's talk about Election Day, because Election Day wouldn't unfold the way it does in this country or in some other countries, again, without technology.
No, not at all. And we rely on, and here's an interesting element of American governance, right, is that we have this federalist system, which means that power in this country, government power, is spread out through the federal government, state governments, and even local governments. So where I am in Michigan, our election is conducted not by the federal government, not by the state government, but by local governments. 1,500 separate local clerks administer the elections on Election Day, and they are all responsible for tabulating the vote, communicating the vote, and of course we use technology for that. In other states, they use even more technological advancements, maybe with a touch screen, a computer screen voting system, whereas in Michigan we still use the old school paper and pen.
Well, people think the newer technology, again, makes it easier to cheat. Why is that?
I think because a lot of folks don't know how the technology works, I would imagine, right? They don't understand the nuts and bolts of it, you know, and even somebody like me who pays attention to this stuff, I think of email and I think it's still just magic, right? I mean, how it works, how we get stuff transmitted across not only state lines, but international boundaries and halfway around the world, right? So I think people look at a vote tabulator and say, boy, that looks like it's kind of sketchy to me. I wonder how, is that connected to the internet, and can somebody hack that? And I think it's just a lack of understanding, a lack of information that leads to some poor assumptions.
Okay, well, you've addressed this, but I want to go back to it because there really are very clear milestones. And we have a slate for this, things that the experts point to as turning points in the United States embracing technology, both to win elections and maybe to mess with elections. Let's start with Barack Obama, his first run for the presidency. He did things no one else had done before.
He sure did, and it gets back to that use of his platform and other social media platforms to really organize volunteers, create some momentum behind get out the vote drives. You know, one of the things that the folks that study the impact of new technologies on campaigns, what they find is that, you know, the social media platforms and whether it's Facebook or what used to be Twitter, pick your favorite, you know, they don't really have much use in terms of persuasion, right? People that follow, say, Joe Biden on Twitter already agree with Joe Biden, right? And people that follow Donald Trump on Truth Social already agree with Donald Trump. But what they do is rally the base. They can turn up the heat on their supporters to get them to the polls or turn them out to events and that sort of thing.
Well, I'm going to jump in on that thought because a second milestone was a scandal that's not, I think, really well known outside the United States, but inside the United States, especially among experts. Cambridge Analytica is a company that got infamous for using Facebook data or promising to use Facebook data and collecting 50 million profiles that were ultimately going to be sold to political parties. Tell us more about that. Did it work?
In some ways, yes. I think that candidates and campaigns are starved for data and starved for information on the folks that they are trying to appeal to. And Cambridge Analytica collects all this data and uses it in some sense to target individuals with messages. Although I would say that this kind of thing has been going on for decades and decades. It's just with different kinds of data and different kinds of information.
Okay, let's jump ahead to the next election. I guess it was 2016. The scandal there was interference not by a private company, but by a hostile power. Russian interference. Tell us about that.
Sure, and I think that the Russian influence in the 2016 election has been hotly debated here in the United States ever since, right? For the last 7 going on 8 years, and there seem to be 2 streams of argument there. The first one is that some folks believe that the Russians were hacking those vote tabulators we talked about before, hacking results, and there's no evidence that occurred, right? There's no evidence whatsoever. But what unquestionably they did is impact the conversation with, we talked about those bots before, right? With fake accounts, with the ability to basically hide behind a computer screen and influence information that people were receiving here in the United States that may have pushed them in one direction or another in terms of candidate preference.
Now, I can remember one episode that was reported of someone outside the United States actually organizing a protest march and sending out thousands of Facebook messages to get people to show up for it, entirely manufactured by someone who was really up to no good. But now there's a new concern, and it's artificial intelligence. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think that we really are in uncharted territory here. We're in the Wild West of American politics yet again, with just sort of scratching the surface and not understanding what scratching the surface means with AI and what it can produce, both visually and with audio, right? I mean, it will create, as we said before, images that look incredibly lifelike, but never occurred.
Does having the technology guarantee you're going to win? If you've got enough money to buy all the TV ads you want, if you've got the money to buy all of the data science that you want, does it guarantee you're going to win? And to look at it from the other side of the telescope, if you don't have the money for those things, does it guarantee you're going to lose?
Having it used to be the question about, does the candidate with the most money always win? Right? I mean, because that was the resource that was needed. Maybe we are in a change in that direction, because it's pretty cheap to create this AI stuff, right? It's pretty cheap to go into an AI generator and create images and sound that are completely made up. But even back when the debate was about money, the most money doesn't guarantee a victory. Donald Trump was outspent in 2016. Right? Similarly, having the technology, having all the bells and whistles, will not guarantee a victory. The thing that matters most in American campaigns is a message that resonates with voters and that draws them to somebody's campaign and candidacy. Right? Having a message, having a winning message, is what matters most, and that will always trump the technology, the money, because you can have all of that, but if you've got a message that doesn't connect with voters, it's not going to help you.
David Dulio, thanks very much.